How about Jamar Chase and his comments yesterday?
Do we have enough time?
Idiot Les Miles is.
Can you believe? I can't. But I'm so glad, really more now for the people that were so blinded by Les Miles when he was at LSU are having the realization of how big of just a screw-up Les Miles was, whether it was his PR off the field, which has been well documented, where he was doing nothing but just chasing skirt the entire time he was here, or it is evaluating Jamar Chase, who at the time is one of the top wide receivers in the country at Rummel, and has the gall to tell that guy that he'll never make it as a wide receiver. I mean,
it shows you how inept
it
his
is
offensive scouting was.
It is amazing to be in the profession and not even be financially rewarded like Miles is. I'm not even going to the guy was making $9 million a year or whatever he was making at the time, some stupid number that Joe Oliva gave him. And he couldn't even evaluate Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase may be the best wide receiver ever created. He may be the prototype that people look for forever. The Shaquille O'Neal of wide receivers. Guy's got it all. And Les Miles evaluated that cat and thought he was a DB. I mean, just when you think he can't get any dumber, he goes and does something like this. I mean, really, it was like him at LSU. Just when you think it's as bad as it'll ever be, he's going to do something to trump that and make you almost forget about how bad the last action was. And I'm not even trying to bring it back up, man, because I know that it's over, it's gone, and Miles has been ratted out, and he's been smoked out, and people realize he's a fraud. He was a fraud as a leader. He was a fraud as a football evaluator. He was a fraud as a family man. Everything that we were sold and told about Les Miles during his reign at LSU was all bullshit. All of it. He couldn't even look at Jamar Chase and say that he was a wide receiver. Guy thought he was a DB. I mean, it is amazing to see how much money people like this have made in the coaching industry and being so bad at their job. Like, if I had to do it all over again, Coach, if I'm like Noah's age, 19.
Whoa.
I hear you.
Need him.
No, he's not going anywhere. I mean, because Noah's going to be great in this profession, you know? But, I mean, just go jump on somebody's staff, try and figure it out, make your way to the top. Next thing you know, you could be making $3 million a year.
No doubt.
You know what I mean?
No doubt.
Like, I think even if you would have told Will Wade 8 years ago, hey, man, they're going to pay you $2 million a year to coach basketball in the SEC, he'd have been like, get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Like,
Can I hire my best friend?
Crazy?
Yes.
I mean, could you imagine if they'd have told Ogeron 5 years ago they're going to pay you $17 million to quit? He'd be like, what?
What did I do? Nothing.
Get the fuck out of here, J-boy.
Yes, go. Pick up the car.
Yeah, right. I'll quit right now.
That house in Destin's paid off.
Just the amount of money that is being thrown around in this industry. I mean, Les Miles took $50 million from the state of Louisiana. He can't even evaluate Jamar Chase. I mean, he was trying to shove his tongue down the throat of students while he was driving around at midnight and didn't know what was wrong with it. And they were paying that guy. I mean, shit, man.
It makes you wonder who else he talked to, or maybe somebody else would walk off campus that was like, you know what, you should actually play defensive back. And like, absolutely not. Like,
No, there's a lot. There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are in the NFL that were told they couldn't play the position that they're playing. I get that, but Jamar Chase is one of the top receivers in the country.
Coach, I mean,
did
you even have to evaluate him?
Yeah.
I mean, like, he's a guy that you see on film and you're like, two plays in, you're like, get this kid. He's in New Orleans. He's going to be the focal point of our offense in 2 years.
Yeah, but the problem is Les didn't understand offense. He didn't understand how to evaluate offense. He didn't have an idea. All he wanted to do was do the toss dive and run two receiver sets with two routes and hey, if your first read's not over, then you don't throw it.
How bad was that all?
So he didn't understand how to evaluate these guys.
How good was Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham, Jeremy Hill, and Zach Mettenberger?
To make it look like
to make it look like, hey man, we can function down here. We can actually call formation and plays and spread the ball around.
Well, they didn't do that. They just called the same plays, but they were so
they were just so good,
gifted on the outside because it was 2-man routes, and that's what makes me like. I wonder if he had that conversation with Odell and Jarvis, like, would y'all like to play DB? Because we got a pretty special defense. I don't know what we're doing on offense, but I'm trying to make this game 3-0 every time we go out.
Jeez, bro.
It was
just when you can't stand that guy anymore. Like it is like so appalling how much money he took from our state and how incompetent and dumb and just out of touch he was. I mean, it really is amazing to look at Les Miles in the wake that he's left behind at LSU and really kind of, how did he even function here? You know what I mean?
It was unwillingness to even change, unwillingness to really say, you know what? This really isn't working very, very well. Like I probably should. Let me try to update my coaching skills and say, okay, I'm going to adapt with the changing. And he never did that, and he never could do it. He never wanted to do it, and it was stubborn. And it was embarrassing.
It's exactly who he is.
Yeah,
right. Because look at the opportunity he was handed essentially. Whenever the fan base loved him despite the offense that they trotted out there. It's
unreal.
What are y'all looking at? It was.
I mean,
that holds a spot in my heart that'll never heal.
In a year's time, he had the Ole Miss game, the Tennessee game, and the Ole Miss game where he clocked it, and he told his team to clock it. That WBRZ Cobble's camera catches him, telling him to spike it, and then he gets into the locker room and says, I don't know who told him to clock it, against Ole Miss when they screwed the clock up the first time. And then within a year, T-Bob saves his life by snapping the ball that time against Tennessee, or it happens again to him, and he got a raise after that. Like, they gave him more money after all of that. It is amazing to see how bad he was at his job and rewarded for it.
And then he didn't learn his lesson because it happened again at Auburn. Like that was essentially the final straw. Whenever they couldn't score. Remember they tried to hike the ball and they score on the last play of the game, but they couldn't get the clock. Yeah. They couldn't get the clock right.
Right.
And he would have saved his job again if they score.
Against Ole Miss in 2009, when he screwed the clock up the first time, or 2008 was it? I believe it was 2009 when he screwed the clock up the first time. The next week, they played Arkansas. It was the night that they wore the gold helmets when Chad Jones decapitated that kid on the goal line.
Adams.
Killed him.
Killed him. Chad might have taken the worst of it, too. He had a little ricochet. He was down first thing.
Whose helmet was it? Was it Chad Jones' helmet that flew off?
They chipped the paint off of it.
It was, crushed that guy.
Him. Not
if you go back to that game, that is 1 week after they leave Oxford. That is the week after. Stephen Ridley does not get out of bounds. And there's back and forth on whether or not he is out of bounds, and they called him out of bounds. If he does not get out of bounds right there, Miles screws up the clock again. The week after, he was bailed out, and if you weren't watching the game, and it was kind of one of those late games, and everybody was... He would have done it back-to-back weeks. Are you watching this?
Everybody.
It's a train wreck. It is a train wreck on a football field where you're you're watching it like, oh my God. You can't look away from it, but you're like, look how bad, look how unprepared they are. Look at just how, this is a Chinese fire drill. I mean, people are in mass chaos and nobody knows what to do. Even that stuff, calling the screen route when they needed they were so lost under his leadership that it is still amazing to me that there are people out there that take up for him and how much money he stole from the state of Louisiana. Not stole, that Joe Oliva signed off on for this guy. I mean, couldn't even evaluate Jamar Chase. Go Poke said Jamar would have been a better DB than Derek Stingley. Yeah, but he's an all-pro wide receiver. And he might be the best wide receiver in the league as a rookie.
Here's the thing: he would have been an unbelievable running back. He would have been anywhere you put him, he would have been really good. That's not the issue. The issue is, hey, this guy wanted to play wide receiver, and he's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. You let this man play wide receiver if he wants to play it.
Don't overthink it.
Don't tell him what's better for him.